And welcome back to Otaku no Video. As always, thank you very much for joining me. Here today with a review of Kia Asamiya's Dark Angel Volume 1. This is a manga from 1990 originally, which was released over here about 5 years ago, over here in America. I should warn you that it's a total of 5 volumes, and that doesn't finish the storyline. Like they did 5 volumes and then just sort of stopped, and it doesn't resolve any of the storyline from what I've read. So all those 5 volumes have been released over here in America, but we just don't know the end of that storyline. So, oops. The basic setup is a pretty standard manga fantasy world in terms of there are these special knights who traverse the land and are very special and have special powers. Main character is a new knight, and folks don't quite believe that he can do what he says he can, but he can. So that kind of a setup. And judging by the violence, it's aimed pretty solidly at tweens. I mean, there's no real gore. People get, cut, and there's a little, spurt of blood type stuff. But the violence is, sanitized by manga standards, which, as we all know, is a little different than what we're used to over here. But, no sexuality. There's no nudity in this one, for example, that I can recall. Anyway, it's that kind of a thing. Kia Asamiya, the mangaka, is created Martian Succession to Desico, Silent Mobius, Steam Detectives. He did the Star Wars Episode 1 manga, done a lot of stuff, more famous probably in the 90s than recently. And that's a really good thing for the art, because Asamiya's style is very clean, very crisp. His action is very comprehensible. It's easy to tell who's who. I mean, obviously there are always a couple of panels where I'm like, okay, whose leg is that? I'm not quite clear on that. Manga tends towards that very in-your-face action style, where you're kind of in the middle of the action. And for me, sometimes I get a little lost in there. And so this is like that, but on the spectrum of manga action, this is more on the clear side than on the confusing side, definitely. And I just like Asamiya's style. It's attractive to me, whatever. Let's see here, what else? The story and premise of this is basically all set up, and this is one of the problems I have with kind of recommending this, is that this entire volume is basically introducing the characters, their relationships, what they think of the main character, and sort of where everyone stands with each other. So we know very little about the world overall, and it's a setup volume. So if you like what you read, I'm sure there'll be more that goes into more detail, but as it stands, there's just not much of a hook in these volumes. It's just introducing the characters, and everything is pretty generic fantasy. It's just, it kind of is there, which again is fine. Folks tend to get, especially Americans, tend to get really worked up over originality. This is not original, that's fine. So the characters in general, as I mentioned, just kind of pretty standard. You have the characters who don't quite believe the main character can do what he wants. The main character is a fairly standard shonen hero. He's not the kind that rushes into an angel sphere to tread. He has these sort of abilities, and he is a little unnerved because of the situation he's been put in. So he's trying to be reasonable about what he's doing, while also kind of defending himself against folks who have various opinions of him. So it's that kind of story. And again, it's kind of all set up, so hard to say. Dialogue in general, fine. Nothing really remarkable there. And because the characters are kind of challenging each other a lot, it's a lot of just sort of dialogue of folks challenging each other. And, excuse me. Overall atmosphere, feel of it is, again, generic fantasy. Nothing really interesting. And the world really isn't introduced in any detail in this volume. So overall, I have a difficult time really recommending this and saying, oh, I love it, anything like that. And because it's a very generic fantasy world with just character setup at this point. And that's not a complaint. This is obviously a shonen series aimed at tween boys. Some fun action, some solid character work. These are characters that I would certainly enjoy reading about. But just, there's nothing here particularly remarkable. And again, that's okay. So that's kind of where it is. If you get a chance, I certainly don't think that you should totally avoid it. It's certainly, and especially if you're more on the teenager side of things, where you're looking for something more actiony than the kind of thing I'm looking for, which is usually more dramatic. This looks like a great place to start. Who knows? But that's basically what I saw of it, and I feel bad because I feel like I'm making it sound like it's this sort of generic thing, which it is, but that's fine. It can be what it is. So if you have further thoughts on this, stop by the blog at otakunovideo.net. shoot me an email at brent@otakunovideo.net, or tweet me on Twitter at otakunovideo. That's it for me. Thanks. Take care.